Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written by Adrian Peterson in Indianapolis and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, North of the Stone Wall, the radio scene in Scotland, Part 2. We'll have another report from the recent High Frequency Coordination Conference in Bulgaria. Our Japan DX report is also on today's program, and in special QSLs, an Indiana listener received a nostalgic QSL from the Voice of Mongolia. Well, in part 2 of the radio scene in Scotland, north of the Stone Wall, we go back to the early 1920s. At the time when the first radio broadcasting stations were installed in Scotland. All 4 of these early BBC stations were Marconi units, rated at 1.5 kilowatts. 3 operated in the medium wave band and 1 in the long wave band. Radio program broadcasting came to Scotland on March 6, 1923, with the inauguration of station 5SC in Glasgow, with 1.5 kilowatts on 717 kilohertz. The original studios were located in a confined area in an attic in Rex House at 202 Bath Street, and the transmitter was installed in the Pinxton Power Station at Port Dundas, a mile north of Glasgow City. The number at the beginning of the call sign, 5SC, has no apparent real significance within the territories of the United Kingdom, though the letters SC would seem to indicate the first 2 letters in the territorial name Scotland. Subsequent stations that came on the air quite soon afterwards were Aberdeen, 2BD, at 605 kilohertz, Edinburgh, 2EH, on 328 kilohertz, and Dundee, 2DE, on 906 kilohertz. The call sign for each of the 3 subsequent stations began with the number 2, and the letters in each call sign can be seen in the name of the city of license. Thus, the second radio broadcasting station in Scotland was 2BD, 605 kilohertz in Aberdeen, a relay station with studios at 17 Belmont Street, and the transmitter almost adjoining at the Aberdeen Steam Laundry in Claremont Street. The station was officially inaugurated on October 10th of the same year, 1923. The third station was the lone long-wave relay station, 2EH, on 328 kilohertz, with studios in the back premises of a music shop at 79 George Street, Edinburgh, and the transmitter in a wooden hut in the quadrangle at the nearby university buildings at Teviot Place on the other side of the main railway station. In addition to the relay of programs from the network key station 5SC in Glasgow, the Edinburgh 2EH was noted back in that era for the production of its own afternoon programming, and a children's hour on Friday evenings. This station was officially inaugurated on May 1st of the following year, 1924. The 4th early broadcasting station in Scotland was 2DE, 906 kilohertz, in Dundee, with studios at 1 Lockey Street and the transmitter at the Caldrum Jute Works on nearby St. Salvador Street. This station was inaugurated on November 12th of the same year, 1924. All 4 of the original medium wave stations in Scotland were subsequently replaced by the BBC at updated locations with new equipment before the commencement of World War II in 1939. North of the Stone Wall in Scotland itself, the BBC is on the air these days with a multitude of radio and TV stations throughout the entire country. The BBC Scotland runs separate radio and TV channels in English and in the Gaelic language. A map indicating all of the AFRS, American Forces radio stations, in the British Isles during World War II shows 2 stations in Scotland. These stations were located at American bases, apparently near the 2 major cities, Glasgow and Edinburgh. Almost nothing is known about these 2 stations, except that they operated at very low power, usually 50 watts. It is known that one station was installed in the American Military Hospital at Cowglen, near Glasgow. No regular shortwave broadcasting station has ever been erected in Scotland, though hobby pirates have been noted at various times, For example, QSL cards show Radio Freedom from Midlothian in 1974 with 35 watts on 6220 kilohertz. Radio Stella from Central Scotland in 1983 with 20 watts on the frequency of 7319 kilohertz. And The Voice of Scotland, located possibly at Cambridge, England, heard in 1993 with 300 watts on 6205 kilohertz. However, there have been some program relays on shortwave from Scotland with the usage of relay stations in the Northern Hemisphere. A licensed internet radio station, Radio 6 International in Glasgow, took out several short-term relays via shortwave stations in Europe and the United States. The shortwave stations in Europe were located in Italy and Latvia, and the shortwave stations in the United States were WBCQ in Monticello, Maine, and WWCR in Nashville, Tennessee. These shortwave relays from Radio 6 International were on the air for a period of a little over 5 years, running from December 2003 to December 2008.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
In recent weeks here on Wavescan, we brought you interviews recorded at the HFCC B14 Shortwave Frequency Planning Conference, which took place in Sofia, Bulgaria, during the last week of August. Today we want to tell you a bit more about the conference. About 86 frequency planners from shortwave stations around the world met in Sofia to plan schedules for the B14 season, which began on October 26th. The meeting was opened on Monday, August 25th, by Venceslav Gergiev of Spaceline Bulgaria.
There is a long-time slogan for Sofia that says for our city, it grows but never gets old. We trust into the future of Sofia and also into the future of shortwave. So let's do the conference under the same motto and with the same hope. We wish you, all of you, a productive work and pleasure staying in Sofia.
Later that same day, Venceslav gave a presentation explaining a bit about his company, Spaceline, which operates former Radio Bulgaria shortwave transmitters on a commercial basis.
Our company is a transmission provider, so we do technical stuff. We are doing shortwave transmissions from our side here in Kostinbrod, or known from most of you as Sofia, as it is being coordinated at most of the conferences. We started our business in 1995, me and my colleague being radio amateurs, radio hobby amateurs, or known as hams from both of you. So we knew quite a lot for shortwave, but of course not so much for shortwave broadcasting. Our idea was to provide our services to companies which are not government organizations, as before the transmitter sites in Bulgaria were being used only from Bulgarian National Radio for shortwave broadcasts. We saw this opportunity to use these sites also for providing airtime on shortwave to another operators, mostly for parties which are outside our country.
That was Venceslav Gergiev of Spaceline Bulgaria. During the next 4 days, the shortwave station representatives worked out their seasonal schedules for the winter or B season, which began October 26th. The idea was to coordinate frequency usage so that stations would not interfere with each other. Despite recent cutbacks in shortwave transmissions from many major government-owned stations, it can still be hard to find a clear frequency, especially for longer periods of time. But by all accounts, most of the potential collisions were avoided at the conference. The conference took place at the Sofia Balkan Hotel a 77-year-old building constructed during the communist era in Bulgaria, which is extremely ornate. It sits on the Sveta Nedelya Plaza, just in front of the Sveta Nedelya, or Holy Sunday, Christian Orthodox Church. There's also a small Orthodox church right in the courtyard of the Sofia Balkan Hotel, along with ruins of the ancient Roman city of Serdica, which eventually became Sofia. Bulgaria has a plethora of very interesting churches and monasteries to visit. On the final day of the conference, some of the delegates went on an excursion a few hours outside of Sofia into the Vitosha Mountains to Rila Monastery, the country's largest and best-known monastery. Our tour guide explained a bit of the history en route to the site.
In the middle of the 9th century, this is when the Bulgarian people were converted to Christianity. And back then now they compare this as joining the European Union. Back then it was joining the civilized world of the Byzantine Empire, which was right next to Bulgaria. But also, this was a basis for the construction of national identity, because the Bulgarian people back then, they were Bulgarian, but also Slavic. The majority of the people who lived here when the Bulgarians came were Slavic. So these were mixed people who had different gods and belief systems.
When we finally arrived at the Rila Monastery, it was evident that the long ride was very worthwhile. It's a striking 14th century monument covered with colorful religious paintings that can only be described as magnificent. As the bells of the Rila Monastery echoed through the mountainside, HFCC delegates from China, Oman, Australia, the United States, and other countries toured the facility, followed by dinner at a picturesque restaurant alongside a river. Inside the restaurant, we found some antique shortwave receivers manufactured in Russia. The next HFCC ASBU conference will take place February 1st to 5th in Muscat, Oman, on the Arabian Peninsula. At the Thursday plenary session in Sofia, Salim Al-Nomani of the Oman Radio and Television gave an introduction to the next meeting.
But the water is, during summertime, is hot. This kind of photos you will see in Oman. Maybe we'll take you a tour to the sea, by the sea, and maybe we'll have dinner by one of the ship and take you to Muscat, and you'll see Muscat and Matra. There's the old souk. Inside, you can see that when you come to Oman. And that's the sea, good views by the sea. This is one of the biggest mosques. It's called Grand Mosque. Maybe you'll see it, we'll take you around. So I'll show the video now.
Salim Al-Nomani of Oman Radio and TV. And looking ahead to the last week of August of 2015, the HFCC conference will be held for the first time ever in Australia, specifically in Brisbane on the Queensland coast. Ken Lingwood, frequency manager of HCJB Australia, is the main organizer of that conference.
So it is quite extreme. Most of the people live on the eastern seaboard, with about a few million over on the western side. 23.6 odd million people in Australia. There's a couple of million in Brisbane itself, and about 4.5, 5 million people totally in Queensland. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of an idea of the country. The country is centred somewhere around about 25 degrees south and 134 degrees east. The venue that we've chosen is Traders Hotel. It's had a couple of name changes over the years. It is basically right in Brisbane City. It's probably somewhere about 11k from the international airport. More importantly is that it's close to what we call South Bank. All you need to do is walk across the bridge over the river, and at South Bank you can get quite a range of meal types from the different countries. You can enjoy sitting down there by the river and watching the craft go up and down the river, etc. Very, very nice spot just to sit and relax. Certainly after a day there looking at computer screens, it's a great way to relax. Travelling in the outback at night is Russian roulette. We have things called cattle that roam unfenced. We have our little friends called kangaroos that like to jump out and inspect your car at the last moment, etc. Okay, so all of those things just make it a little bit different. We really look forward to seeing you in Australia in August next year. Thank you.
That was Ken Lingwood, Frequency Manager of HCJB Australia, welcoming HFCC delegates to Brisbane for the Worldwide Shortwave Frequency Planning Conference in August of next year. We at Wavescan look forward to reporting from these two conferences in 2015. All right, next in Wavescan today, let's go to Yukiko Tsuji in Japan with her DX report for this month.
Hello and welcome to the DX Report of the Month from Japan Shortwave Club, edited by Toshi Otake, and I'm Yukiko Tsuji. We have several DX reports from our club members this week. Radio Taiwan International was heard on 11665 kHz on October 11th, from 1600 to 1630 UTC in German. SIO rating was 322, then up to 454. This was a test transmission from Tamsui. Heavy interference was experienced from another station on the same frequency until 1610. Radio Republic Indonesia from Wamena was received on 4870 kHz on October 5th from 1245 to 1302 UTC in Indonesian. SIO rating was 353. Local songs were played and ID was given at 12:58. Reach Beyond Australia from Kununurra was heard on 15490 kHz on October 4th from 0800 to 0830 UTC in English. SIO rating was 443. The programs Search for Truth followed by Family Care were on the air. Interference was from Chinese stations on 15480 kHz and 15500 kHz. Radio New Zealand International was heard on 11725 kHz on October 6th from 0700 to 0729 UTC in English. SIO rating was 454. Pacific Regional News and Dateline Pacific were broadcast. Democratic Voice of Burma via Dushanbe, Tajikistan was received on 11560 kHz on September 26 from 1430 to 1530 UTC in Burmese and vernacular languages. SIO rating was 343. News, telephone conversation, and a report were aired. Saudi Radio was heard on 15120 kHz on October 8th from 1250 to 1305 UTC in Bengali. SIO rating was 353. Local songs and news were broadcast. Elniki Radiophonia from Greece was heard on 9935 kHz on October 2nd from 2040 to 2105 UTC in Greek. SIO rating was 252. News report was aired and ID was given at 2100, then local songs started. Family Radio via WRMI Okeechobee, USA was received on 7570 kHz on October 12th from 1000 to 1100 UTC in Japanese. SIO rating was 252. WRMI started this temporary Japanese program on October 1st to see responses from Japanese audiences. If response is positive, they plan to continue Japanese service. Radio Verdad from Guatemala was heard on 4055 kHz on October 8th from 1128 to 1219 UTC in Spanish. SIO rating was 343, then down to 232. They aired mainly hymn program. Radio Nacional Arcángel San Gabriel, LRA 36, from Antarctica was heard on 15475.96 kHz on October 7th, from 1838 to 1920 UTC in Spanish. SIO rating was 241, then to 232. Some songs and a telephone conversation were on the air. Finally, Japan Shortwave Club will issue the QSL cards for the correct reports on our segment of Wavescan program. We are issuing QSL card by email to the report sent by email. Our address for your email report is jswcqsl@live.jp. I repeat, jswcqsl@live.jp. We continue to issue the printed QSL card by the same system as before. Your report should be addressed to JSWC, P.O. Box 44, Kamakura, which is KAMAKURA, postal code 248-8691, Japan. $1 ILC or $2 for return postage will be appreciated. For this edition of DX Report, we'd like to thank Mr. Iwao Nagatani, Mr. Motofumi Kai, Mr. Tetsuya Ogawa, Mr. Mitsunori Kawazoe, Mr. Chiaki Shimada, and Mr. Hiroyuki Akiba for sharing the information with us. Thank you for listening, and please join us for our next edition of DX Report of Japan Shortwave Club. I'm Yukiko Tsuji in Tokyo.
Thank you, Yukiko. For our unique QSL this week, we feature a very special QSL that was received by Mrs. Dr. Carolyn Lisandru, amateur call sign KC9URR, who now lives in Bloomington, Indiana. Some years ago, Dr. Lisandru was living in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, where she spent some time. Here in the United States 2 years ago, she endeavored on several occasions to tune in to the shortwave service of the Voice of Mongolia. And then on September 14th, 2012, she was finally successful in tuning their signal on 12085 kHz. The 250 kilowatt shortwave transmitter is located at Hanhor, a few miles southeast from the national capital, Ulaanbaatar. Her reception report was verified by a friendly letter in English from Uyanga Ganchanga, together with a QSL card. That is a tourist picture postcard with the QSL text handwritten on the reverse side. Mrs. Carolyn states that she spent many days trying to hear the station, and that it was so nice to receive such a wonderful personal letter referring to the area where she used to live in Ulaanbaatar. With a nostalgic comment, Carolyn Lisandru concludes by saying, "I miss Mongolia." And we end today's Wavescan with some music from Mongolia. This is a song called My Beloved Country, performed by the Mongolian National Song and Dance Academic Ensemble. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio, researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson. Next week on Wavescan, the 100th anniversary of the Panama Canal, the radio story, part 2. We'll also have a multitude of QSLs from Calcutta in India, our Philippine DX report, and our QSL of the week will be the Fire Drake Jammer in China. A reminder that we have several QSL cards available. Send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for the Wavescan program to the AWR address in Indianapolis, and also to the station your radio is tuned to, which may be WRMI or WWCR or KVOH, or to the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Remember, too, you can send a reception report to each of the DX reporters when their segment is on the air here in Wavescan. Those are from Japan, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Australia, and India. They will verify with a colorful QSL card. Return postage and an address label are always appreciated. Our main Wavescan address in Indianapolis is Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan at awr.org. That's our email. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. Our email address is wavescan at awr.org. That's wavescan at awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, good listening, everyone.